and gentlemen, and welcome to the third episode of The Real Talk with me, your host, Thandiwe, here on Baobab Chat. Today, as you can see, I feel very legal. This is my very legal face. I feel very legal. I feel like a Judge Judy. I feel like the war constitution is in front of my house, in front of my hands. In fact, I feel like going outside and causing havoc with my neighbors because I know that I'm fully protected. In my panel today, I've got Dr. Emma Chitsove and I've got a lawyer, Dennis Njau from Kenya. We are here to discuss the topic of human rights and how they are practiced within our continent, Africa. I'm just going to briefly ask them to introduce themselves, starting with Emma. Thank you.
Thank you, Thandiwe. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name has been mentioned. I'm Dr. Emma Chitsove, and I'm an academic and legal consultant. My includes human rights, enforcement, and environmental. It's my pleasure to be on the show so that we at least unpack this aspect of human rights protection in Africa. We are known for so many things. There are times when we need to take a look at how we're doing within our continent.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Dennis Njau. I'm a lawyer based in Nairobi. I'm also a social media consultant. I'm glad to be here to talk about human rights, something that affects all of us, something that I feel quite strongly about. And it's a pleasure to be here to share ideas with my very capable senior, as well as Thandiwe, the host. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Dennis and Emma. And actually, you just reminded me, when you are talking to me, please know that you are talking to someone with limited knowledge of law. So you must just keep your conversations and your words basic. Do not insult me and my audience, please. I only did one subject of law, that was communication law, in my first year when I did my first degree. And I failed it 3 times. So that's how low I am in this subject. Please do not insult me. And that reminds me as well, I had a fight with my dad, I think in 2014. And then we separated, we went separate ways. And then when I tried to apologize to him, I know that I wasn't wrong. I wasn't wrong, but due to the respect that I had for him, I felt like texting him a message and writing the term due diligence. I don't know how you guys use it. So until today, I have it. I tried to Google the what does it mean? How can I use it in a sentence? But still I can't. So I feel very lucky today that I have you in the panel today. Can you please just give me one sentence each of what due diligence means, or just a due diligence in any statement, so that I can list send him the message that I still want to send him.
Yeah. Wow. Due diligence. Okay, the first thing is that we have taken note of the fact that you are saying you are law in law, and we'll try by all means not to insult you and also to insult our viewers. So we're going to break it just into digestible terms. So here's the sentence: due diligence, and it's going to involve you, Thandiwe, that sentence. So I can say, yes. So I can say our host, Thandiwe, did not practice due diligence in choosing this panel.
Why? Okay, what does it mean?
What does it mean? You did not take reasonable steps. You did not take into account. You did not make proper investigation.
Due diligence.
All right. I think what Emma is trying to say is due diligence basically means homework. You can think about it. So I do a lot of work around social media, and perhaps in that context, I can say that if you want to buy anything over social media, you need to do your due diligence. So do your homework about it. So that's pretty much what it means. It means homework. Just do your own research before anything. The same way Emma is telling Thandi she should have done her due diligence before selecting the panel today.
Okay, so let me find a proper sentence to go and tell my dad that with due diligence I've come back as your daughter or something like that. I'll have to consult you. Okay, back to our topic. Human rights violation in Africa. Is this a new phenomenon in Africa? What is the background of it? Maybe tracing back to slave trade and eras like that. What is the background and a brief definition from your point of view of what human rights in Africa should be?
Okay. Well, if I may, I'll begin by maybe defining it quite simply. Human rights can be described as principles or morals that guide human behavior. So how we treat humans. You can think of human rights as benefits that are allocated to you by virtue of being a human being. Okay. Now this means everywhere. It doesn't matter that you're in Africa or Europe, everywhere. Okay, as long as you're a human being, you have human rights. They are inalienable, in that no one can take them away from you. Okay, simply by being a human being, you have human rights, and they are supposed to be protected universally. So all across the world, your human rights should be protected. Yeah.
Thank you, Dennis.
Sure.
Yes, Dennis has captured it so well. By virtue of just being born a human being, you receive certain entitlements, and these entitlements should not be taken away from you arbitrarily, if at all they're supposed to be taken away from you. So, for instance, we speak about the right to life. So, when you're born and you're born alive, we expect the state to respect your right to life. It means putting in place all those good conditions that can promote your right to life, that also protects the right so that it's not taken away from you. And within the African context, you find that we have seen so many instances where there have been abuses of human rights. But ironically, when you look from our history as Africans, you find that all our post-colonial African states, they were born out of the need to protect human rights. We have the struggle to fight for some political and economic self-determination. So that is the first thing. And secondly, you find that the independent states themselves, they start making use of human rights so as to demonize some of the activities that were still going on in other countries. For example, when Ghana became independent, it started lobbying for self-independence of other African countries, such as South Africa, such as Zimbabwe. So human rights, they are there just to protect us as human beings. And in Africa, we have our own good history of using human rights so as to find a big protection, so as to remove some minority governments. All those things are rooted in the protection of human rights.
Human rights. Okay. And then when it comes to classifying them, I know the struggle for the protection and advocacy for human rights has been going on for so long, such that some of them now they are no longer found in other regions, and some of them are still prevailing in other regions such as Africa. Looking at it, how do you classify these human rights, and which ones do you think are needs our most urgent attention, especially within the African continent? Which ones have we managed to respect to what certain level, and which ones are we still lagging behind with?
All right. Let me put it this way. Human rights can be classified into a variety of small branches. For example, we have an example would be economic freedoms and economic rights. You speak about the African context, so I guess we can just start from there, right? Human rights don't just mean political freedoms, which is what we might think about it as. Most people associate human rights simply with things such as freedom of speech, freedom of association, but it goes deeper than that. There are different ways in how you can group them, such as what I've mentioned, economic rights. Of course, I think I'd let my very able senior to lead the way into into the surface of that before we go into it. Over to you, Emma.
Okay, thank you. So you rightfully mentioned the aspect of classification. It's basically rooted in the history itself of how we came about having these rights. So the first class has already been mentioned of those political rights, and we find that as a result of coming together, we started having the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. And at that point, people were interested in things such as the right to vote. We need to express our political freedoms, etc. And at some point, things, they continue to evolve. You find yourself with your socio-economic rights. And then there is another group of rights known as the third generation rights. These are basically collective rights. So in the African context, we have various instruments where states have captured these things. And one of them, or at the core, is the African Charter on Human and People. So we find a whole list of our political, civil and political rights, socio-economic rights, and also our group rights. Examples, that was what you're asking for as well. So I'll start with the third one, which is the collective rights. These are the rights that concerns solidarity or requires collective cooperation, therefore realization. An example is the right to a clean environment. So a clean environment does not just affect me, it affects us as a society. So if someone decides to pollute the atmosphere, you're not going to be harmed as standing on your own. The whole society is going to be harmed by such kind of an activity. So it would require a collective cooperation for that. But these classifications, they are really artificial in the sense that the rights are interdependent. Yes, they are indivisible. You can't say this group is more important than the other. It's like looking at you. You say, I think my nose is more important than my hand. It does not make sense, you see? So at the end of the day,
I want to chip in with my 2 cents.
Yes.
I've also found out, like when you are talking about the correlation between the human rights, I've also found out that there are invisible effects of human rights that feeds in. There are invisible that feeds into the visible one. So such that some things you don't see that this is abuse of human rights, like what it causes or the effects. Like now we are refugees in people's countries, in foster countries. There is abductions in Nigeria. So when people look at this, they look at their immediate concern, that is, we don't have jobs, but they don't see the macro, the cause of this, the motherboard of this, to say this was an abuse of human rights. So I just wanted to agree with you there to say there is obviously a connection between the rights.
Yes.
All right. Yes. Well, Thandi, when the Universal Declaration of Human Rights came out in 1948, it did speak about economic rights. Specifically, you've spoken about jobs, right? And this was mentioned, in between Article 22 and Article 27 of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So things such as employment and economic rights are very they really just go into the very foundation of human rights. Okay, people do have the right to economic liberty. People do have the right to culture. Cultural rights are part of human rights as well. So when we say that people are suffering from lack of jobs or grave unemployment, this is really this can be considered as human rights abuse. Thank you.
Oh my God, I was attacked by a lawyer now. So what I was just trying to say is there are maybe effects that comes as a result of abuse of certain things or of certain acts by certain organizations, such as the governments, obviously. Am I correct? Oh,
Definitely.
I feel like I'm in a good time. Please
Definitely you are,
like
Thandiwe. Yes, they are. There are various effects there. When you see, let's just look for an example of a right which find it being removed arbitrarily by the state. Let's think of the right to freedom of association. And then we have scenarios whereby the government say we don't want people to associate, you can't congregate and protest. What are the implications? If the government is doing something wrong, where are you going to find redress? You can't do so because the right has been removed from you as an individual and also as the society. So the lack of respect of a particular right has got some implication, individuals as well as to the society. So for that particular reason, there's the need to promote human rights, protect human rights. It's not just for the betterment of the individual, but it is also for the betterment of the society.
Exactly. And okay, looking at such examples like the abductions of girls in Boko Haram, and we have a lot of representation when it comes to organizations such as the AU and the UN and so many other branches and organizations. Do we have enough representation? How do we promote this? How do we promote the exercising of human rights, and which bodies are there that represent that advocates for this?
All right. Well, I'd like to say this just to begin with, that human rights are a universal issue. It is not just isolated to Africa. Okay. So the bodies that are there to protect human rights, such as the United Nations High Commission for Human Rights, they apply across the world. Okay. We see human rights abuses all over the world. Most recently, we've seen it in Myanmar, where we've had a military junta taking over. And the thing is, the protection of human rights by bodies that have been set up has been a bit controversial. I'd like to throw the spanner into the works, as they say. If I may just mention an example, would be the International Criminal Court, which you could say has been set up to protect human rights. But one of the issues with this international body that has been set up to, of course, protect human rights is that it seems to be focused on certain countries, right? Such as Africa, of course. Now, are human rights really a universal issue, or is it just an African issue? We must look at human rights as a global issue, so that if we have human rights abuses going on in South America or in North America or in Europe or in Australia, it should be a global thing and not just a focus, so that we have the story where human rights abuses only happen in Nigeria. That is not the truth. They happen everywhere, and I feel like we do need a global approach to this, and the world really needs to take a unified approach, so that we are not just isolating Africa as a place where human rights abuses happen. What do you think?
Yeah. Kanzo, I totally agree with you. We see we have some problems with these, what you consider our supranational institutions. Within our African system, we've got our African Court. Before that, we had an African Commission on Human and People's Rights. And this has been put in place to deal with these problems. But you find that just having access to this court, so difficult for an individual, because it requires a state to lodge in an instrument that allows an individual to have access to these bodies. So you find that at the end of the day, you might have it, but it is not accessible. You will have to satisfy a litany of requirements for you to access those things. And secondly, you find that within the SADC part, you find ourselves with the SADC tribunal. And what happened when the tribunal decided to pass a judgment against Zimbabwe? What happened? The tribunal was disbanded. So at the end of the day, yes, this is a universal thing. Within our own context of Africa, we still suffer some things that for us to go to a certain institution for your protection at that global level, we have difficulties. The violations are occurring within the state. You would expect to go to your high court, to go to the Constitutional Court. But sometimes you don't find redress there. Now let me go to an upper body, a supranational body. Find that it will take you years and years to get there. In some cases, your matter is going to be thrown out. Just to give you an example, you see in Angola, there is a part which is called Cabinda. The Cabinda enclave has been fighting for independence for some time. As a result of history, they were at some point recognized as an independent or semi-autonomous entity there. So when Angola got independence, they were put together. And Cabinda wanted to, and he still wants to be, not to be part of Angola. And it brought some claims before the African Commission, and they were interested in saying the resources within our port are not being used wisely, are being used for other purposes. And the matter was thrown out of court. It was basically thrown out of the commission because of various reasons. So now you have a of people wants recourse, but when they go there, you'll be told, no, you can't because you have not done A. So our supranational bodies, they have got some defects. Institutions themselves understand that you can't have protection for only your members.
Okay.
Thanks,
well,
Emma.
if I may just revert a bit, I do respect Emma's position that we have had difficulties as Africans seeking redress from African courts, and I understand that. But at the same time, we must ask ourselves the position that we should take on this issue. We realize that when we lack redress in Africa, we seek it from international courts such as the International Court of Justice, and the ICC. But if you look back about 50 or 60 years ago, these were the same people who were oppressing Africans. These were the same people who were carrying out grave human rights abuses against Africans. So it's a bit ironical that now we seek justice from our former abusers, So I do think that within us, and we should not, just go back the same way. It does not make sense for us to seek justice from people who carried out grave injustices against us constantly. We must be the ones to come up with the solutions. If we have problems seeking redress from our own courts, then we must work on our own judicial system, on our own justice system to make it better, so that our children and future generations don't have to seek redress from our former colonial masters. Thank you.
Exactly. Yo, guys, this topic is so heavy. I'm sweating. I'm thinking, what is this? This is new information for me. Can we just take a minute break, Stan? Can we just take a minute break and then we'll be back just shortly? Thanks. Hi guys, it's Thandiwe. Welcome to Baobab Chat. I just heard something that I wanted to share with you guys, reflecting back on 2020 and our generation in general. So I know that a lot of us now are being hijacked by the internet. We are so much onto social media. Everything, our lives, they revolve around social media. I just wanted to offer a words of encouragement to my fellow people and my fellow friends and everyone else who's on Baobab Chats. Do not let Facebook intimidate you or the social statuses of everyone, and think that because you don't have what they have or you don't have the same opportunities that they had, now you're failing behind. Keep hoping, keep up your dreams, and know that no one has it all. Everyone is suffering, everyone is going through things, and then they are just good at hiding it. That's why you don't see it. So just focus on your dreams, focus on your career, focus on what you think, what you know is important on the end goal. Don't be distracted by what you see on the social media, because everyone else is trying to show off what is best out of their lives. We don't go to social media to show our weaknesses, to show our failures, but we go there to show our strength. And at the end of the day, it ends up discouraging other people into thinking that they are not doing enough. Do not listen, do not be discouraged. Just focus on your dreams, focus on your goals, and associate yourself with the right people that can help you and encourage you and motivate you to become the person that you want to be. Great, guys. Thanks and welcome back. I think we are also running short of time, so we're just gonna have a brief closing remarks from Emma, and then also from Dennis regarding the abuse in Africa.
Yes, thank you so much, Thandiwe. Before we close, there are things that we just need to highlight a little bit. The things that relates to things that affects us. What is it that makes us not that affects the enforcement of our rights in Africa? We have things such as corruption. We've got things such as lack of resources. These are some of things that are really affecting us in promoting our human rights. And you also have to give cognizance or credit to where it is due. We have come a long way. Africa has done something good. We can't just taint everything with that black brush. We have some things that we have now recognized in our countries. Some of those things we used not to recognize. Some of these things are so alien. Women's rights, they've been promoted. Of course, there are some challenges. Issues such as some same-sex marriages in some countries, they are being recognized. Of course, we say it's good. That's the story for another day. But there are things that we have done well, and there are countries that are doing well. Then there are other countries that are not doing well. Corruption is affecting us. Lack of resources is affecting us. And of course, some cultural constraints are also affecting us. So we hope that as time proceeds, we have to overcome these factors so that we can protect our human rights as a continent. And we are not just, hands are not pointed on us on just doing the wrong things. We also have to acknowledge the good things that states have done in Africa.
Yes, I totally agree. And I also want to point out, like this, the point that Dennis highlighted earlier on, to say Africa, we seem like to be the main focus of human rights violation, probably because of the media, like you said, and obviously then it only reflects on the bad things that are coming out of our continent, obviously being portrayed by the media like that. So, and also that we are acknowledging and we are recognizing these things, we are recognizing these days and celebrating each one of them. So it actually is a step towards the goodness and towards the global universal impact that we're going to have with the rest of the world. Dennis, can I please have your closing remarks?
Thank you, Thandi. I'd like to say that human rights is a huge topic. I wish we had more time to talk about this, and maybe in future we will, because if we delve into it, we'll be here for a very long time. But I want to say that human rights really begin with us. So wherever we are, we need to think about human rights. Think about what it means to you. Talk to your friend about it, okay? And then after doing that, take a holistic perspective of human rights. Let us not just have a very narrow perspective about human rights and think that human rights can just be narrowed down to freedom of expression or freedom of association. I mean, it goes wider than that. We have also economic rights as being human rights. Like, what is the point of me being able to say what I want on Facebook and I'm still living in the ghetto? We also need economic rights, okay? So when we call for human rights in Africa, as much as that is true, and we must call for human rights, we must speak against the oppression of political dissidents, and as has been happening all across the continent. That said, we must also have a conversation about economic rights of Africa, how African countries get the shorter end of the rope when it comes to economic trade deals, how African countries do not benefit fairly from the kind of deals that that go on with other countries. By this, I'm talking about Yes, thank you. But this I'm talking about, the economic rights of developing countries as opposed to those of the developed countries. We cannot have the developed countries have unfair deals, especially in buying commodities and export and imports.
Exactly.
We need to have a balance. These human rights also go beyond just freedom of expression. It is much deeper than that. So as we talk about human rights with our friends, with our associates, online, wherever it is, let us also remember economic rights. We need Africans to get fair deals. We need us to be on a flat table with our counterparts, and they are our friends, right? Because we are not enemies, we are all colleagues. Let us have fair deals. Let us have African countries being granted fair deals, and Africans benefiting fairly from all the raw materials that we export,
Mm.
from all the services that we give. Let us have economic rights being primary. The same way we value freedom of expression, let us also value economic rights. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dennis. Thank you so much, Emma. It was such a pleasure to have you guys. I know you guys are very expensive, and it's not every day that you have to sit with you guys without worrying to sit in a prison, or selling your kidney to pay the bill. At least I'm gonna have the comfort of sleeping in my own house today after speaking to you. And you are going to be on my speed dial always. I'm a very mischievous person, so we are going to be like this close. And today, I want to firstly apologize to my audience. My ESCOM failed me. The electricity just switched off, so I didn't manage to interact with you guys as well as my lightning. That's why I had to take a break, and that's why we had to end the show abruptly. But anyway, join me again next Thursday. We'll be discussing our last topic of human rights. Again, Thursday next week at 9:30 p.m. here on Baobab Chat. Don't forget to subscribe and like and our comments, all our posts on YouTube and on Facebook. Thank you so much, guys. Bye.